So welcome to the Tuesday chat. My name is Sonia Bingaman, and I am the Regional Manager of the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. We are an organization that serves statewide all over California. We have 12 different offices, and our office is the Sacramento Regional Office. So we serve 10 counties around Sacramento, the greater Sacramento region, and there are two staff in my office, myself and Kathy Bryan. Kathy, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi there. Yeah, as Sonia said, I'm Kathy Bryan. For some of those of you I haven't met yet, it's good to see you and meet you for the first time. Just to tell you a little bit about what I've been involved regarding employment is with the Business Advisory Council. That's a group comprised of self-advocates and family members, supported employment agencies such as you'll be hearing from Carole today, workforce agencies, Department of Rehab, SETA, and Alta Regional Center. The purpose of the BAC is the acronym BAC, is to meet with businesses to determine what their workforce needs are. The other thing is to provide a job fair for inviting business partners and all community members to attend. It's an inclusive event. And we also host and highlight a business who has inclusive hiring practices. So we typically do that once a year as well.
Thank you, Kathy. And Kathy and I work together. You'll see one or both of us at many, many, many functions in the community. So we are a partnership there that just tries to get out to our 10 counties and be involved in as many events as possible to further our mission of our agency, which is the State Council is established by state and federal law to help people achieve their goals, to look at systemic change, to look at capacity building, which means just increasing the ability of our communities to support people with developmental disabilities to identify, learn about, and then work toward achieving their goals in their life. And today we're going to be really focusing on employment and community supports and being as much a part of the community as you can be and want to be. And we also reach out to the community and do a lot of work in the community to train whether it's police officers or the Rotary or business leaders, so that they understand who a person with a developmental disability might be, what their hopes and dreams are, what they want to do in life, how they pretty much have all the same goals as any of us. But sometimes we just need to explain that to people. You know, they sometimes have ideas that people are somewhere else, right, and not part of our community, and everybody is part of our community. So that takes sometimes some education, and that's what we try to do. So during COVID-19, while we're all at home, we've taken this opportunity to really reach out to our community and see what the needs are and see what questions people have, what they want to learn. And so one method we've done that is, in addition to a lot of trainings that we're doing online, and we're collaborating with people from all over the state, it's just been a great way to collaborate and get to know some of the agencies that are 400 miles away, but we're on Zoom doing trainings together. It's been great. I wanted to do this weekly chat to take the opportunity to interview people that I know are leaders in our community and give all of you an opportunity to ask them questions. So we are going to talk today with Carole Watilo with Progressive Employment Concepts and Jackie Armstrong. And thank you, Jackie, for joining us. And we also want to just welcome all of you who are, I know a bunch of you are from Southern California, so I don't recognize your faces or your names, but welcome to the call. All of the information we're talking about is really relevant for all over the state. So, you know, wherever you are, that's great. We have programs that are like the program we're going to talk about, and some areas might not. So it's a great opportunity to learn about the way Carole has her program structured, and maybe that's something that would work really well in your community as well. So I wanted to hand it over to you, Carole, for a few minutes. Let me just one more time repeat that we have a chat box. So if you have questions, I see there's already 10 chats that Kathy's going to keep track of. Those are questions if you can't hear or there's some sort of technical issue, as well as any questions that you have. Feel free to use that. Kathy will keep track of them. And when we get to our second half of the hour, Kathy will ask the question, or you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question. So welcome all of you to our conversation today. So Carole, tell us a little bit about yourself and how Progressive Employment Concepts got started and how you got into this line of work.
All right, thank you. Thank you guys all for being here. This is so fun. We're all learning so much more technology these days. So I got into this because of my family. I have 5 nieces and nephews who use regional center services. My sister has always been in this field, and I kind of followed in her footsteps. And specifically, Progressive Employment Concepts came around because I didn't see out there in the community what I envisioned for my nieces and nephews and their friends. Services that were designed to help them meet their needs and their goals, not something that they had to fit into, but something that fit around them, and that was focused on helping people lead real lives, just real regular lives. So that is what we try to do at Progressive Employment. So.
How is Progressive Employment different? You say you didn't see what you were looking for. Can you explain a little more? And I know that was a question we had on somebody who registered asked that question. How is this program different from other programs, and aren't all employment programs the same?
Yeah. So our agency is 100% community-based. We've been around 25 years. Our mission, and I'm gonna share my screen right now and pop this up so you guys can see our mission and vision. All right, people seeing that? Thumbs up, yeah, okay. Yes. So our mission, in collaboration with the people we serve, is to develop and discover opportunities which promote dignity, respect, inclusion, and meaningful contribution so that all of our lives and communities are enriched. I won't go through our whole vision statement, but basically we wanted to help people do things that were meaningful, productive, contributing, that help them be respected, included members of their community. And not just because that's a good thing for individuals with a developmental disability, because it's a good thing for all of us. It's a good thing for all of our communities to reflect the full diversity. And then this past year, we've really focused on what our core values are. So as an organization, and I think this really makes us a little different. We're 100% community-based. We've had no site or facility for the past 25 years. All of our services are individualized and designed around the person that we're supporting. That doesn't mean they're paid for one-to-one. It just means our services are individualized. So our 7 core values: opportunity, inclusion, choice, contribution, respect, relationships, and innovation, are really what drive our services. And it was great when we started developing these and really operationalizing our values as well. We really saw that it wasn't just the values that we had for the individuals that we were serving, but it was the values that we had for ourselves as employees, for ourselves as community members as well. So I think that's how we're a little bit different. We're very, we believe all people can work. We actually believe all people should work, unless you've got a trust fund or you know, you're independently wealthy somehow. Really, all people should work and have the opportunity to contribute. So we are very focused on employment, but we're also focused on people being valued, contributing members in their community in a variety of different ways: attending school, volunteering, all of those other things that you and I do
Let me just see if I can see who is not muted. If anybody is not muted, there's a little bit of background noise. If you could mute yourself, that would be great. Carole, I wanted to, it seems repetitive, but your program is structured so differently from other programs. And a lot of programs emerged from a model where there was a center, where everyone came every day to the center, dropped off their lunch boxes there, and then maybe went out into the community once or twice a day or once or twice a week, but they had a center based. And your program's really different because it never had that. So you're not emerging from a different model. Can you talk about that a little bit?
When we first started and we were really thinking through how we wanted to be set up, there was a lot of pushback that we had to get through, that people wanted us to have at least a site where people could, oh, well, if it's raining out, so people could have a place to go. Oh, if it's too hot out, people could have a place to go. And we really had to resist that notion that people with disabilities were so different from anybody else that they needed this location to go to should it happen to rain, or should it happen to be over 100 degrees, or any of the other things. And what it made us do was be a lot more creative. What do we do when it's 105 up here in Sacramento? What do we do when somebody needs has personal change needs, right? People need to be in the community, but maybe they can't use a typical restroom. What do folks do? Well, our answer wasn't have a building. Our answer was find that in the community. If it wasn't in the community, help create it in the community, so that we could serve all people where people belong.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Thank you, Carole. We've gotten a request for the sign language interpreter to put her hands up into the box more to be able to read the sign language.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Thank you very much.
So I think that we just had to resist some old notions of what people needed, and always think first about what does it look like for everybody else, and then how do we provide that when people have complex needs or different needs. How do we modify, right? But our basis is always that people belong to the community, and then how do we modify. And Jackie can maybe add, I think, because she's had experience in a couple different venues of employment supports, how they're different. I think you have some good insight on that, Jackie.
Yes. So I went to college straight out of school, and I got a job through a family friend, and that job quickly disappeared because of low funding, or, they closed down just like businesses do sometimes. And I fell in love with working. So I worked at an after-school center that I actually used to go to, and worked there 3 years. I liked it okay. It was pretty cool. And then the recession of 2008 happened, and they closed. They lost their funding. And I lived on my own at that point, so having a job was a little more crucial, but there were no jobs out there. And so I was placed at a work activity program, which is basically where you go to a center and they do contract work, usually assembly. Sometimes, if you were, quote unquote, higher functioning, you got to do electronic assembly, working with like medical devices and things, but almost everything was sub minimum wage. So minimum wage was $8 an hour at the time, and I was making $5 an hour before taxes. And I was doing engineering level work for $5 an hour. And basically, when I started to talk about being in the community, the counselor would say, well, why? Why do you want to work in the community so bad? And tried to keep me there. And eventually it got to a point where I said, well, where are you planning to do if you want to keep me so bad? So we developed this thing where I got minimum wage, but I wasn't allowed to tell anybody because nobody else was. Eventually I got fed up though. I still like, they couldn't keep me there forever. And I had graduated college, so the thoughts about my future started to come up a lot more. And I decided to try and get a job in the community. I was told basically that I wasn't ready, which I have a whole speech about the word ready, actually. And they also said maybe I could do something with Department of Rehab where I did an assessment like washing dishes, but I have a bunch of friends where basically they get that assessment, they blow that assessment, and then they're told that's your only option. Sorry, you can't work in the community. And they're just stuck in that system forever, basically. I'll get to that in a second. But so I already knew that. So I said, well, if you want to assess me, I don't plan on doing retail or dishes. I want an office job. I want to work in the office. So I'd rather just go, cut out the middleman and go straight into supported employment. Well, Alta Worker told me no. I called Carole, or I think my mom emailed Carole, and Carole said, you're on the top of the list. So we met, had a meeting with Carole, and the Alta Worker was like, oops. So I got in with Carole. And at the same time, because I still needed to make money, I was still at the workshop while getting Discovery. It was a very interesting time in my life. And I basically told them, I don't want a job, I want a career. And then I got placed with what's called a PIP. And the place that hired me is called SMUD. They are the utility district based out of Sacramento. And it fit perfectly. I work with engineers all day. Everybody likes Marvel and Walking Dead like I do. Everybody fits in really well. Everybody's funny and fun to be around. And so they hired me basically the second the PIP ran out. I've been working there since 2017. And so when the COVID happened, basically there's no remote work for me. So I shifted gears and I said, what would I like to do with my time? And I said, I'd like to educate the people that have been told by Department of Rehab and their Alta workers that this is the only option. Sorry, you couldn't wash dishes fast enough. So I'm going around to every People First group with support, with Cindy Reuter, to go to every People First group and tell them my story, tell them that you can work, you can get a job, this is how you advocate for getting a job, and basically preparing them for post-virus employment, basically.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. Jackie mentioned a couple things in there that I'll highlight. Discoveries are person-centered thinking way of assessment. It's a non-traditional assessment of really figuring out what people are good at, what they want to do, and then connecting with employers who have those needs and matching. So it's a very different way of job development. It's a very different way of getting to know the individuals that we serve. And then Jackie also mentioned the PIP, which is a paid internship program funded through the legislature a few years back. It allowed Jackie to get her foot in the door while the employer was able to see her abilities and make sure that they had the work that matched, which they did, and then she was hired on. And Jackie, you don't have to tell us how much you make, but
I make I make 5 times as much as I did when I was at the workshop.
Yeah. So
We'll do the math, Jackie.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Thanks.
So, Jackie, thank you so much for sharing.
Yes.
And we've had you come and do, your whole spiel, and it keeps changing. So we want to have you come back again and have a whole hour just for you to share your story, because I think it's so inspiring for people. I want to shift a tiny bit and have Carole talk about somebody who maybe made an accomplishment or achieved one of their dreams that nobody thought that they were able to do.
Maybe Dom.
Yeah. So like it's so funny because I have 100 of those stories, because every person that we meet, our agency sometimes is the agency of the like Jackie said, she kind of had to fight a little bit to get in. She was on a waiting list. Sometimes people don't just easily get referred to us. They have to have bombed out of other things, or they have to have significant support needs. So Dominic is a guy that came to us with some complex support needs. He has no voluntary movement below the neck. He uses a manual wheelchair that he doesn't move himself. He doesn't communicate verbally, yada, yada. He's got, support needs. He's also an incredible guy with a great sense of humor and a great personality and some really great skills. So Dom was one of the first few people that we served 20 some years ago. And he's had a variety of different things that he's done throughout his life. He worked for us. He had his own small business. But it was really following the process of discovery with him that he kind of fell into his sweet spot, I guess. He took some classes at Folsom Lake College in criminal justice. Dom is not somebody that would ever have been considered college material. Just would not, especially not academic classes. But that's what he wanted to do. That's what we did. He had a lot of modified curriculum and support to take his classes, but he also ended up in the criminal justice club on campus. I always say Dom's a good Catholic, so, criminal justice fits well, the right and the wrong. He's got that very, very down, the black and white. And he, through that, he met people from the Citrus Heights Police Department. Dom has now been a volunteer for the Citrus Heights Police Department for over 7 years and was just recognized by the state, and his department, the CHPD, were recognized by the state for their for having an inclusive workplace. Dom does mall security. So he travels around the Sunrise Mall, making sure people are safe there, helping people out to their car. He also does parking enforcement for accessible, if people are parking in the accessible spots illegally. He writes tickets. He does code enforcement. So all around the city of Citrus Heights, he will travel around. His support staff drives him around in his van, and he looks for code enforcement infractions, which he is super detail oriented. So he picks up on things that I would never see. So if we took Dom at face value and didn't dig deeper to see who he really was and what he had to offer, we would not have figured out that path for him. He would not have figured out that path for himself. So I think he's a great example. My nephew is another great example. He is not necessarily, doesn't have all, he doesn't read really well. He has some speech communication difficulties, but he always wanted to work with kids. He has just like 3 months before this situation, got a job at an after-school program. and he was excelling. So yeah.
Thank you, Carol. Do you accept all individuals that are referred to you into your program, or do you have certain requirements that someone has to have certain skills?
Yep, we have a zero exclusion policy. So that's how people like Dom get in. So we have no preset, people need to be able to walk or talk or whatnot. We provide physical support, we provide attendance support, whatever it is that the person needs in order to do the things that they want to do. If that's going to school, if that's starting their own business, if that's going to volunteer, if that's getting a job.
Carol, what's the most frustrating part of your job?
Right now, there are so many frustrating things. No,
Yeah.
I think lack of staff that are able to stay in this field long term. Because of low wages. I think that's one of the most frustrating things. I think that things change very slowly in this service system that we have created, and that's very frustrating. I think that people, the general community that doesn't have the opportunity to see people's gifts and talents and have exposure to that from the very beginning. From the first time that we're in school, that's frustrating. Those are all difficulties, but really just not having enough time to do all the good things that are possible for people and with people. That's the really frustrating part.
Thank you. So let's pivot a little bit to COVID-19. And can you explain how Progressive Employment has adapted immediately from when we went into shelter in place, and then how things are looking now for your staff and the folks that you support? What are you doing?
Yeah. Our staff, I just have to shout out a couple of my staff are on this call. I got to shout out. They were awesome. We literally stopped providing services everybody went home in the end of their day on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, we said, what are we going to do? We serve 126 people agency-wide. We sent out a survey Tuesday night. What do people need from us? What do they want from us? How can we help you continue to meet your goals? We got responses back on Wednesday, and by Thursday, we were up and running, turning around and doing things differently. So we have folks continuing to provide support to people who are essential workers, who are still out there working at grocery stores, doing landscaping, whatever it was that they were doing, and they're still doing that. And our staff are providing support, using all the proper equipment and hand washing and using all the safety precautions, but doing their work. And then we are supporting people. We have helped out several of our supported living agency partners that this has impacted dramatically. Suddenly they are literally 24/7 support. So we've been supporting people in their homes. And so transitioning sort of our supports there and trying to work on any of the goals that they had, and how we can do those things in their home. We have done virtual support. So I have just been amazed that the individuals that we're working with, people have been so flexible and have stepped up. I can't tell you the number of people who are now doing Zoom meetings, who are FaceTiming with my staff while they're at work and working through the things that they need support with virtually, even just on the telephone. We're doing wellness checks with every individual, even if they said, no, I'm really at high risk, or I live in a group home and so I can't have anybody support me. But I do want you to call me once a week. So we're doing wellness checks with people. We have really focused in, there was a lot, the disability community, this created a lot of fear for people, this COVID-19. And so one of the things that we've really focused on is a person-centered thinking tool called a one-page description, and a one-page description for healthcare, so that people had a little bit more sense of security. And Jackie could talk a little bit about that too.
So the
Jackie,
funny,
I'll pop up your one-page
of
description.
course. So the funny thing about was I was actually reticent to do it. I was convinced that if someone read it and saw disability, that they would refuse to give me a ventilator, that they would refuse to support me, because I had heard reports about, like, there were some states that would, you know, take a person who needed a ventilator away from them if they had a sick, you know, all these horrific, barbaric triage things were in place. So I was terrified to do this report, and finally I got over it and was like, well, they might as well, you know, they might as well see what's going on with this. So the first thing I wanted to do with my SLS DSP was find something that said I matter. So she said, well, why don't we take something from your SMUD video? So so I took a still from my SMUD video that I had created with SMUD in the Mind Institute, and it's the only still where I'm not blinking, because I have a weird blinking tick when I'm nervous. So it's the only one that I'm not blinking. And I conferred with my mom about what the medical parts of my disability is, which is all right there, as you can see. I was born with a mitochondrial disorder that affects how I get sick, and then the brain stuff is all the learning disability and all that. And what I want you to know, it has to do with, like, hey, I process things slower, which means, like, if you're screaming, like, what do you need? I'm not going to be able to answer it right away. And then the how you best can support me just has to do with, like, you know, talk to me instead of just my staff, and, you know, give me a chance to process everything. And then, you know, letting them know that I am also have a medical DPA in case I'm sick or delirious and yanking out my IVs, that my parents are my DPA. And then what's important to me has I think that was a part of, I think, the one-page profile that we had done before. So I decided, okay. And then, you know, I had seen that everybody keeps clapping and stuff for the healthcare workers. So I said, thank you for all you do in supporting me for my medical needs. That's just something I added.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I did for that. And hopefully I never have to use it, but here it is.
How does it feel, Jackie, just to have that all in paper and ready to go if you needed it?
You know, at first I was, like I said, I was extremely reticent to even say I have a disability at all. I wanted to just pretend that I didn't, and just say, oh, I have acidosis and that's it. But now that I actually wrote it out, I feel a lot more empowered than I did before this all started.
And this is just another example of a one-page. That's just another example of a one-page description for healthcare, so that people felt, like Jackie said, empowered, and that they had something that they could take to a hospital with them just to make sure that their needs were met during that time, and to, you know, people, like Jackie said, people needed to feel secure that people knew they mattered and they were important and they were valued people. There's a lot of fear, rightfully so, by people. And I think that's one thing that has been a difficult thing for my staff to realize and to support people with. That's not, that's a lot of touchy-feely stuff that we're not counselors. We don't get into that kind of stuff with people. And this has really brought up where we've had to really have those conversations with people about this is scary, and what do you want to do in these situations, and how do you want yourself represented, and what do you need in order to feel secure in just even being sheltering in place, right? It's isolating. And if you're not reading the news and you're not watching the news, you know, to you, you know, you got dropped off on a Tuesday and then your staff never came back the next day. I have clients that have asked their staff if they were bad. Is that why they're not coming back in? I've had staff say, why won't you come get me? So really having to have those hard conversations with people about, no, this isn't about you, and it's affecting everybody. And we've really tried to do some good work, you know, FaceTiming other people that they know, and say, see, they're at home too. It's not about you or anything that you've done.
Right. Well, thank you to both of you for sharing. I know there's so much more we could talk about. I want to open it up to questions. Kathy, are there any questions that jump out on the chat? And then we can open it up to people to ask their questions as well.
Yeah, Teresa had a really good question. Teresa, did you want to go ahead and ask that?
Sure. Good morning. Hi, Carol, Jackie. Nice to see everybody. Sorry I couldn't be on camera. My signal's a little weak, so it keeps freezing, and I apologize if I break up in the question. But thank you guys very much for doing these weekly calls or Zoom chats. It's really nice and it's really helpful. I wanted to ask Carol, how do you work with individuals, families, parents who are a little nervous in the transition age years from school to work, and maybe have a little bit of fear about working in the community or finding something that is of interest to them? And how do you help families navigate through finding their interests and getting into the community, especially families that have students with real limited mobility and limited verbal communication?
Yeah, that's a great question, Teresa. We have actually partnered with a charter school, a large charter school here in the Sacramento area, and we're doing some transition services. They had 12th grade, and then kids, left. They didn't have anything past that really, but are responsible for kids to 22, and it didn't make sense for those kids to continue just taking classes like they hadn't ended at 12th grade. So in thinking through their transition program, they contracted with us rather than trying to recreate the wheel. They contracted with us to provide supports during transition, which has been a great experience. And I think it's something that a lot of school districts could look into doing. I think it's it's been a great opportunity for those students to have kind of a safe way to transition in. It's made the parents feel good. The kids sometimes go and take some classes at the high school still. They're also taking classes at the community college, and then working with us through the discovery process. And we've, it's amazing because we've had very, very sheltered students that, families were like, oh no, they're not going to go in a car with you. We have to see every location that they're going to go to before they go to it. Within, I would say the usual period is about 3 or 4 months. That stops because they've built that trust and relationship with their support person that they're working with through our agency, our community development specialist. And so they see that the person is making strides in their goals. They see that the way that we're interacting with people is respectful and safe, and that the things that they're developing for themselves are are the things that they want in their life. So yeah, people, and those are students with, we have one student with really, really complex support needs, and we've got other students who really have, who don't have that complex of support needs, whose parents are still very sheltering. So that's, yeah, but it's in every situation, it's worked out really well.
Great, thank you.
You know, in looking at the chats, there aren't a lot of other questions, but Darlene, I was wondering, did you have anything you wanted to ask? You've been communicating with me quite a while on the chat, so is there something you'd like to ask Carole?
Well, I'd just like to know, I mean, because I saw on the internet where Nevada partners with the state of California, but then there is no SELPA here, and I'm really trying to understand how the services are allocated here in Nevada. And so, and I did hear Steve Sisolak saying that he wanted to partner because the federal oversight for Nevada comes from Seattle and also from Sacramento.
I don't know much about Nevada's service system. I know it typically services for adults in other states come through the counties. So money flows from the state legislature to the county to provide services and supports for folks with developmental disabilities. I know.
I
was just gonna say,
also know that there are state councils in each state. Do you know a little bit more about that, Sonia?
Darlene, are you talking about Nevada State or Nevada County?
I'm talking about, well, you know, I don't know. We live in Las Vegas, and so in Las Vegas.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
Nevada. Yeah, there is a state council office. I think it's actually, I'm not sure which city it's located in. It might be in Reno or south of Reno, maybe in Carson. Is that the state? Because I know we've had members of the state People First chapters and of the state council come to some of the conferences in California. So if you're in, I know you used to be in Sacramento, because I know you've come to our RACs. Yeah. So so you've relocated, but definitely just look up State Council on Developmental Disabilities in Nevada. If you need help, just email me. But there is an office there, and they should be able to at least connect you with some of the resources you're looking for, because each state is different.
Each state is just different, and I'm finding that we're all Americans, and I think that the most important thing to ensure that access happens for all of us is for all of us to participate in the oversight process. And I'm just trying to understand why the leniency in some states, because nothing changes from state to state if you're a citizen.
Right. Well, Catherine Weston would help out here, right, Catherine? And in that every state is really different, and California has a very unique system in our regional center system and the Lanterman Act. No other state in our nation has a Lanterman Act, and that is what guides and assures access to services throughout California. That is unique to California. Every state has some services, but they all do look different in terms of the number of people who can be served and the kinds of people who can be served, and the extent of services. So every state has some sort of residential support, some employment supports, and so on, but sometimes they're very disjointed. They're provided through different agencies, and we have the Lanterman Act, and we have regional centers that help to create one access, although you can also go to Department of Rehab and so on, but one centralized place where people can get a lot of their services. So it is different, and people often leave California and then 4 years later come running back because there are some different ways that things happen in California. But if you need some help with finding those services in Nevada, just send us an email, and we'll make sure to connect you with our partners in Nevada. Education-wise should be the same though, because I think the education laws are nationwide.
Yeah.
Department of Rehab is federal as well.
Right, right. Any of you in Southern California have some questions? Do you have programs that are like Carole's program that are completely community-based? I know there was also a question in the chat, Carole, that maybe you can address that said, I think the gist of it was, how do we continue providing supports in programs that were more center-based prior to COVID-19, and now people are home, but they weren't completely in the community, they were at a center. How are services continuing to be supported in those programs? I don't know if you have any insight on that.
I think that for all of us, things are going to look different coming out of this. And I definitely think that congregate living, congregate site-based services is something that we all have a responsibility to look at for people. Not that those services will go away completely, but how to set things up for people so that it is safe. We definitely don't want what New York had, right? And a group home of 49 people and 30 of them test. We don't want that, right? For the people that we care about in California. So how do we look at it? And, you know, I think a lot of state leaders have been talking about recovery and reimagining how services are provided and how supports are provided. And I think it gives us a great opportunity to think about those things. Now, you know, we can take this awful situation and let it defeat us, or we can take this really bad situation and we can say, how do we take what we learned here and do better? And let it spur us on to create new things and yeah, really reimagine how things can be. I think that we have definitely learned. I think our services were pretty adaptable, pretty flexible. Our clients have had to learn over the years to be pretty flexible. If one staff can't support you at your job, but another staff is going to be there to support you, it's not about which staff you have. It's about, can they support you to do your job? And all of those kinds of things. Are they within a team that you know, et cetera. So, but even as adaptable as we have been, we've had to be more and think outside the box even more. And it's taught us that we all can be. The folks that we serve can be more adaptable and more resilient than we thought. Our staff are more adaptable and resilient. Our agencies are more flexible. We can be more cooperative and collaborate and create partnerships. So I think that that is the good thing that we're going to take out of this.
Catherine, are you willing to let me put you on the spot?
Sure, just give me a second to unmute myself. Are you talking to me, Catherine, or you deferring to Catherine?
Yeah. Oh, you, Catherine.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think this is something actually we are going to be having some community conversations, and I know within the regional centers and all the programs they're looking at where do we go from here, both in the next 3 months and 6 months and 20 years, and we were in a period of transition already. Are you willing to just share maybe what's being looked at in terms of kind of reopening things, and then also how we take this as a lesson in terms of HCBS settings, home and community-based settings, in a transition we were already in, and look at that? I know that's a huge question, but.
Sure. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Catherine West, and I work at Alta Regional Center. I'm the home and community-based services specialist, which means I work with our providers as well as with our staff on transitioning the compliance with the CMS final rule. So we have been talking a lot about what the new requirements are going to be for our providers, and we've been talking about people's rights. People have the right to make choices about what they do and where they live and how they spend their time. People have the right to be as independent as possible and to pursue their dreams and to have individualized supports. So that is a good thing for everybody. It's good for our communities. It's good for the people that we serve. It's something that we're all in favor of. And we're seeing, challenges right now with the current situation as, we all are adjusting. We all are not experiencing the full community life that we want to. We're all missing that right now, but we recognize the importance of it. And so as a regional center, we want to make sure that people are still receiving the supports that they need, that they still have as many choices available to them as possible, while still respecting the orders that we have in our county and our state, right? So, we're balancing the choice and the health and safety, right? It's always navigating that line. So we do look forward to more of our day services opening and increasing their service capacity again. But we're going to be following the direction of the counties where they're based and the state as well. And working with the local health departments for all of that. So I would encourage you, if you have questions about your specific services, reach out to your service coordinator. If you have questions about specific types of services, you're welcome to share that here as well. I know we've got some other day program specialists from ALTA on the call as well. But hopefully that answers some of your questions, Sonia. Is there anything else I can share with you?
Well, I think that's great for now, and I think we'd love to revisit that question and maybe have you on for a whole hour as a guest as well.
Sure.
Because I think there's so much to talk about there, and I know it's something that we are actually actively working on scheduling, of just putting out there, having community conversations, and we'd love you to be a part of that, to envision a future that acknowledges all the things that Carole and Jackie have mentioned in terms of what people want to do, and that doesn't look the same for each person. Jackie is different from the 120 other individuals that Progressive Employment supports. Each person has their own interests. So how can we respect those individual choices while still having a program that's viable, that can stay in existence and pay their staff and have good staff? So many issues, and I hope all of you who are on the call will log in when we're trying to have those discussions and give your input and feedback. And you're always welcome to email thoughts, questions to any of your state council offices, your regional centers, disability rights. All of us are involved in conversations these days and collaborating. So is there one more question from the audience that anybody want to just, Kathy, do you see a hand raised or somebody?
For Catherine Weston, I have a question. Is HCBS, so HCBS is on track until, I believe it was going to be April of 2022. So is that still the time that's been in place, or has it been sent out further because of COVID-19? Or pushed back, I guess.
Yeah, so the final rule requirements were adopted in March of 2014.
Yeah.
And the time for implementation for providers who maybe had a model of service that required some updates or some tweaks, we have until March 17th of 2022 to make those changes. We do expect that people are implementing what they can at this time, right? We're not going to put off respecting clients' rights, but for some people who may need to rewrite a program design or to make a shift from more site-based to more community-based programming, we've got some time to update that. So I'm not aware of any changes to the federal deadline of 2022. That's still pretty far away. Right now, many of our service providers through the regional center are completing a self-assessment for DDS to see where they're at right now and what changes they may need to look at making. And so there was an extension for that self-assessment process.
Okay.
And they've extended that until the end of June. So we want people to be evaluating their services. We want people to spend time talking to people that are impacted, maybe participants of their program, their family members, care providers, people who see our needs being met right now, and what changes may we need to make. So yeah, we've got a little extra time there, but things are so fluid right now. I think, we're all kind of taking one day at a time and doing the best that we can. But good question.
Thank you, Jackie. And thank you, Catherine, for letting us put you on the spot there.
Yeah.
So we are just about out of time. I wanted to let you know that the next week we are going to have Andrew Pentecost from California Health and Wellness, and he's going to be talking about your general rights under managed care. Doesn't matter if you're on health and wellness or Anthem Blue Cross or another plan, just the general rights that you have under managed care, because not everybody understands what they are, and some special things that maybe you don't know are there in terms of a health plan that can be supporting you through challenging times. So he will be our guest next week, and then after that is April Wick, the Executive Director of Resources for Independent Living, and then Diana Maffei from Warmline Family Resource Center. We have additional secret guests booked through most of June. So if you know of a guest or a topic that you think we should schedule, let us know. And we will plan on continuing to do these, even if we're not forced to be at home. I think it's working. We may look at a different time of day or whatever that works for everybody, but so far people have been pleased with the format and being able to access people and ask questions and deal with a variety of topics. So I will we'll end the call because it's 11 o'clock. Please look for an email from me. Thank you all for joining us. I will send you an email. Please respond if you can and just fill out those questions. They're very brief yes/no questions. Please give any additional comments about how we can make this better, what you thought of it. If you have questions specifically that didn't get to be answered by Carole or Jackie or Catherine, feel free to put those in there and we will forward them out and get answers, and we can certainly share the answers with everyone, so it doesn't have to end right here. So with that, everyone have a wonderful day. One more question that I will be asking in the email is if you want to be on our email list. I just want to explain for a minute that we have 3 email lists. One is our statewide SCDD State Council email list. The second is our Sacramento Regional Office MailChimp list. Both of those send a couple emails a month. And then the third is my, I kind of call it my special list, where I forward emails about events, trainings, things happening statewide or in the Sacramento area. And sometimes it can be as much as 5 to 10 times a day. So I warn you, but if you want to be on that list, please let me know, and I will add you to whichever of those lists you want. So I won't do that without your permission. But thank you again, and everyone, thank you, Kathy, for your assistance there, being the bouncer, and everybody behaved well on the call, so that was great. And thank you all. We'll hopefully see you all next week. Thanks so much. Have a great day and stay safe.
Okay.
Thank you, Carole.
You too.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.